We all have a personal brand. Over the last 20 years, we haven't realised that everyone has it. Even if you only got 200, 300, 400 followers on your Instagram or LinkedIn, whatever, that's still your personal brand.
When we had that conversation about the whole podcasting, I was like, it's kind of a no-brainer, like it aligns everything.
And I just went, well, it's obvious that actually short-form collateral out of podcast content is what is absolutely killing it at the moment. So I don't know if I want people to see me like that, but you are who you are, right? There's only one of you.
Yeah.
Like, believe in it, have faith in it, and run it.
All right, so I kind of wanted to start just by, I wanted you to kind of explain the inception of Podcast Foundry. And because obviously like we've both been in the industry for a while.
Yeah.
And it started after like just a random conversation we had about one of my podcasting clients. So what was the thought process that you went through? Because obviously you got off the phone, I spoke to you and I was like, I've got this podcast client. You went off the phone and literally within the next couple of hours, you'd called me and we had like a 2-hour conversation. And
Yeah. I think, okay, I mean, a bit of a backstory. So what I do a lot more of is like digital transformation for small businesses. And a lot of the time that there was a few key investment points. Obviously things like their website, etc. And then social presence, performance marketing, but all of them required content and content that didn't exist. So like to put that in as an example, I've got a GP practice, an NHS GP practice, and they called me to go, we need content. It inevitably led to us looking after a lot more things, but I've always had this requirement for good content. And with every client. And then when you spoke to me about podcasting, and I'm an avid listener of podcasts. I listen to like multiple a week. And I just went, well, it's obvious that actually short form collateral out of podcast content is what is absolutely killing it at the moment. Like podcasting is growing exponentially. If we put 2 and 2 together, then we can kind of create, I guess, this mechanism, as like a solution for our clients that allows them to create long-form content that explains their product, their journey, their client base, even onboarding for new recruits, etc. But from that, we can harvest collateral content that showcases them publicly and grows their digital presence. So I guess when you rang me about it and told me, I was like, actually, ding, 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 like, isn't this the solution? And look, you can see it. So many, I guess, we call them influencers, but they're not really influencers anymore. Like they're businessmen that have invested in it. And actually this goes beyond just businessmen. Donald Trump cares about how he's perceived online. So if Donald Trump cares about it, why shouldn't we?
Yeah.
And why shouldn't we leverage that? Like there's that logic of, where people have made money over time. So if you look at the older generation that are billionaires now, the Warren Buffetts, they made money out of money. And then people made money out of code, like the web. And now people are making money out of influence or social, right? Like this concept that them as a person is grown. And a podcast is the prime way of doing that. Yeah. So I guess I've just aligned businesses with the ability to podcast.
Yeah.
And of course we come from a place where we are content generators ourselves. So it just seemed like the logical play.
So I kind of want to understand, obviously I know, but I want to understand a little bit more why it's a great business idea. It's it has real world benefits, I guess. But how does this align with your personal passions and stuff? Because it's one thing being a great business idea, but I want to understand why it aligns with what your beliefs and your...
I've always believed that people buy people, not people buying product or services. Like the reason we use suppliers that we use is because I like the people I work with. If we can expedite that through a podcast so that people get to know those people quicker, then in essence you would assume that more leads would come through. And for me, that's the most important thing. Like I've always loved stories and understanding why people are who they are. One of the big things I do when I speak to someone that's kind of joining our team is like really deep diving what their dreams are. Because that gives me a sense of their direction, their momentum, like why they do what they do. Or is this the right step for them? And a lot of the time, I'll question whether this is the right step for them because I want them to grow and excel and get to their dream, right? Like achieve that. So I feel like this specifically aligns with my skill set from being a sound engineer or training as a sound engineer all the way through to video production, and then allows me to apply this, I guess, ridiculous interest in people's lives, like trying to understand who they are and why they are those people, and puts them together. And that's like a dream job.
Yeah.
Like that's a dream experience for me.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you do it?
I think exactly the same. Like from the projects I started with the Open Journal project, which was all about, my background is I studied psychology. So when I got into this industry, it was more about understanding people on a deeper level. And I thought the best way to do that was through video. And that's why I started that project. And as time's gone on, like, we've been in the wedding industry, we do a lot of corporate work, and it is all about people. And we're sharing those stories and bringing those stories to light. And so, like, when you told me when we had that conversation about the whole podcasting, I was like, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like, it aligns everything. It's just perfectly. So being able to, like, showcase founders and founder stories and put them at the forefront of their industry, their business, it just felt like the most natural thing to do. The progression in what we're both doing. You mentioned also, like, you said our podcasting is growing exponentially, but can we put a couple of figures to that? Like, where are we getting?
You know what? I'm glad you asked, because I've prepared some.
Okay, wicked.
So we've done some research around this, and like podcasting has been growing since 2017.
Yeah.
Podcasting been around for ages, and frankly, before that it was radio. Talk radio is podcasting is talk radio. But I mean, if we just look at the stats that we found, and these are all, findable online, they're saying that 548 million podcast listeners, and that's in 2023.
It's nuts.
Around the world. Now, it's funny because they're saying that that'll actually grow by another 20% within the next year. So that's a ridiculous growth rate on podcasting. But actually what we're finding is the demographic of people that are listening to it are generally decision makers, quite affluent, business owners, like exec level, that are engaging with podcasts generally. It seems to be the cool trend. And I guess it just shows that if you're targeting that kind of group, this is probably the ideal way. What else did we find?
Just a question there, digressing slightly. What was your first experience of like podcast? Like go way back.
Oh God, what was my first podcast I ever listened to? I couldn't even tell you. I honestly couldn't tell you, because I think it's a real challenge actually when you boil down what is a podcast. It doesn't even have to be conversational. It could be a single individual describing, and I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube educational content. I remember one of the big people that kind of incentivized me, even in the video and photo world, was Peter McKinnon. He's one of the fastest growing YouTubers of his time. Like, he got from 0 to 1 million subscribers in less than 3 months.
That's insane.
Like, mad. But actually, the way he did it was very much to camera. He had this thing called, what was it? Like, Trick Tuesdays or something like that, where it was like a 60-second, like, this is how you do something. It was hyper educational.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there was any specific podcast that kind of got me in. I mean, look, there's some massive podcasts, the Joe Rogan Experience, Diary of a CEO, that are absolutely like huge. But I think it's, I don't know if there was one specific one that was like the one. Was there one for you?
I wouldn't say there was one particular podcast, but I'm just thinking, like, I just remember those. Was it RSS feeds that you used to have to, all that stuff? And then radio would have been the first thing. It's not exactly like a podcast, but it's not that dissimilar.
No, it's
not. Like,
no.
You get talk shows and stuff. And
well, the irony is, you look at the radio and like someone like Talk Sport are doing more numbers on YouTube than they are actually on their radio shows.
Oh wow, okay, I didn't know that.
So like their repeat content on YouTube is actually flying.
Yeah.
Because obviously they can snip it. Guess what? It's a short. Like, makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's just easy. You don't have to sit there for 2 hours listening to them ramble on to find that one bit when they can just pick it out and give it to you.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think there's one specific podcast, but I mean, I am fundamentally a podcast listener. I'll be sitting in the car with my family and there's a podcast on, and I do get but why do we have to listen to this? And I'm already in it. So it is what it is. Do you know what I mean? The other thing I think is quite important to know is actually podcast listeners, though, being one of them, I'm not abnormal. So generally, someone listening to podcasts listens to 6 to 8 hours a week. So the amount of content they're willing to engage with is huge, absolutely massive. Which means that we can really build like strong relationships. Like that's the most important thing we're trying to do is I guess us explaining a story or sharing a story of a founder or sharing a story of a business owner is so that someone can engage with them. They become warm to you. If you reach out to them or they feel they need your services, it doesn't feel like a cold call, even if it is one. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, actually, because when you're watching a podcast, you almost feel like, especially if it's one that you listen to regularly, you almost feel like you know that person.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I was listening to... They become a household name almost.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So why video podcasting then? Because obviously we have your radio, you've got your Spotify's and your Apple Music podcasts and stuff, but we're really focusing on video podcasting.
Yeah.
Why do you think video podcasting is so much more powerful?
I think this boils down into twofold. One being the ability to leverage that content further than just that individual piece. So audio podcasts are great, and actually most listeners are listeners, right? Like most of the podcasts that I listen to, even they do have video content, but I don't actually watch it. Like I'm just headphones in
the background.
Yeah, like headphones in, not caring about what it looks like. However, why did I get to those podcasts is because I found it on, my Instagram feed or on social shorts, YouTube shorts, etc. And the only reason they work there is because there's video, right? Like well shot, well produced video collateral that is short form, that's engaging me to go, actually, I want to hear further. So it's I guess the beauty of video allows us to diversify into so many other platforms.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's really, really, really important. It also allows people to see you. And I know that seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
But when you hear a voice, you don't know what they look like. You do not feel like you've had a relationship with them. In the same way that when you got a phone call from a salesman, you're like, okay, most people hang up and say, piss off.
Yeah.
But you don't know who they are, what they want. Like, you're not engaging with them directly. If you can see someone in the eyes, then you can truly engage with them. So that's
obviously body language tells a lot as well. So when you've got that showing on videos, it's like you said, it's easier to warm to someone. It's easier to understand. I guess it's the non-verbal stuff that matters as well, as much as the stuff that people are saying. So yeah, video, obviously that's why video is important.
And then obviously I talk about that relationship building, but what else can we do in terms of connecting with, how does this help us connect?
I find sometimes when I'm listening to podcasts, I need to be listening, but if I'm listening, I'm also thinking about other stuff. Whereas when I'm watching a podcast, it's very different because I can see your lips moving. I'm taking it in a lot more. And I guess these days, with podcasts, and you're able to, or with especially shorts, you can add graphics in there. You can add subtitles and stuff. Even if there's no one in the room, I'm always still reading subtitles as well.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Well, no, I agree with you, actually. I was recently listening to a podcast. It was a Diary of a CEO podcast with a person that I can't remember his name. He is a language specialist, how to public speak, and they talk about his dad. Now, I was literally walking whilst listening to the podcast, and they're talking about his dad, and they're referencing images, and I'm like, but I can't see these images.
Yeah.
And I'm walking, I'm like, do I get my phone out and look? What do I do? So, yeah, no, visuals are so important in terms of engaging in someone's story as well, right? It gives context.
Yeah.
No. So, Pri, what podcasts do you listen to?
Currently?
Yeah.
What podcast am I listening to? Okay, there's this one called Pass the Meerkat.
Okay.
Talk to me. I think that the name's great. For me, it's downtime. When I'm just chilling, driving, I'll listen to that because I want a bit of a laugh. It's a bunch of guys just talking about uni experiences, life experiences, and just there's nothing too serious. It's just good fun. It's stuff that you can relate to. So I listen to that regularly. Even before I sleep, I'll whack my headphones in. I'll be listening to that, and I'll fall asleep to that. Strangely, but I guess it's what you want to get out of a podcast, because I wouldn't listen to them for business advice because they're not talking about business advice. So then you have I've been very interested in startups, founder stories and stuff like that, venture capitalists. Just I'm interested in that space.
Yeah.
So I listen to Harry Stebbings' podcast, which is He's got the 20-minute VC, so he speaks to like VCs and startup founders and all that stuff. I guess it really depends what you want to get out of them. I think with podcasts now, like there was a time where it mattered about having like a massive a viewership or
audience,
like massive
base,
audience. Now it's like podcasts are you have a very like niche base and like a very niche audience. It's all you really need, like even if your podcast is getting like 200 views, if those 200 views are going out to the right people and they're the right listeners, it doesn't matter.
No, very much true. Like a lot of people have valued all sorts of content. We have it all the time. We create collateral for like commercially for people, and they base it on viewership. Like that concept of viewership, yeah, but they could be the most irrelevant viewer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, and if you're talking about a very niche subject, if you get 20 good viewers, is way more valuable than 2,000 average ones. And there's no real way of knowing whether they're good or average. So everyone kind of uses the boilerplate, which is more is better. But I guess the beauty of podcasting is that the retention of audience will only be those that are valuing what you're saying and are valuing the content you're creating, which means that they are good quality, right?
Yeah.
Like they are good quality from a business perspective. If it is a business podcast, then they're the ones that are actually engaging with you and will be willing to ask questions and build your community around it. And obviously, we're trying to build a community. That's what audience is. It's a community.
Just accidentally on that point, whilst I've got it in my head. So I started a podcast with my daughter.
Yeah.
As you know, we've been watching it.
It's so cute.
It was just a bit of fun. Like, you know, having a chat with a toddler is just hilarious. And actually, I was on a shoot, a corporate shoot for an event. And I had someone approach me who's come across the podcast. And they're like, oh, you're that guy from, Perspective who does that podcast with his daughter. I was like, yeah. And then she proceeded to ask me, oh, I've got this event coming up. Would you be able to? But I feel like she's already like warm to me. She already knows. And that's when I realized how powerful this is. How powerful video is actually. Because if there's no way that she would have maybe come across that if it was just audio.
Of course not.
But being video, like seeing me with my daughter, it was completely different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry.
No. But it's, I guess that is 100% proof of concept.
Yeah,
is that you haven't even generated a podcast that is about your ability to shoot commercial, shoot event, and yet they've looked at that, engaged with you on a personal level,
exactly,
and been able to connect the dots, right? And I guess this goes on to the biggest point of this and why Podcast Foundry, I feel, is. It goes back to our original reason for doing it, is that fundamentally we are trying to aid businesses, founders, business owners, whatever tier you are, to help build your personal brand, which fundamentally supports your business. Like you as an individual that runs your company that does production for X, Y, and Z, like you have been able to grow because you've been able to share your story and your person and why you do what you do. Right, who you are personally, and by even representing your 2-year-old daughter with you is prime example that you're not. There's no gaps in information that you're not sharing. There's no public perception and personal perception that you're trying to split up, and that's why I think this is so valuable. Is that we all have a personal brand. Over the last 20 years, we haven't realised that everyone has it. Like how you are perceived. Like even if you only got 200, 300, 400 followers on your Instagram or LinkedIn, whatever, that's still your personal brand. And you can reinvent that somewhat, but your I guess presence online can be aided, supported, especially if we do it intentionally. Like if we focus down on what we're trying to achieve in terms of building your personal brand, i.e. as a founder in your startup, or as a business owner and growing your business. And all of this, the bottom line is we're doing this so that you get more leads through the door. You get more income coming in. But that is directly affected by you as a person. Like, and if your business is that big and scaled and doing really well, there's still opportunities because Elon Musk still does it. Like Warren Buffett still does it. Like all of them are looking at these opportunities to invest time into them as a person publicly. So the more people know their name, the more people that will engage with them.
Exactly.
And that's the bottom line of what we're trying to achieve here, right? And how we go about it, the content we talk about, it might be business focused, but it might be personal. But actually, all of that is still aiding your personal brand and your personal brand value. I mean, I was listening to a podcast only today. Simon Squibb, who I love, like what he does. I actually love his intention and his purpose. Yeah. Like in terms of educating people in a different way. Like I've never thought the schooling system was that great. And I think what he's doing is phenomenal. And he had Iman Gadzi on, and he talks about this, which is, he is like a king of personal branding, right? Like whether you like him or not, and whether you agree with his business or whatever, but he basically said that as soon as I put intent into my personal brand, my numbers went through the roof, right? YouTube is his big platform that he really leverages. His numbers went through the roof. And he goes, now I'm in a place where people come, like if I want to buy a business out, or I'm looking at new opportunities, building a new SaaS company, developers are willing to work for me because they know me. And I haven't even met them before. And and he goes, that just changes your perception of how you do business. If I know that I'm investing $1 million into something, but because I've got a personal brand with so much scope, growth, and like reach, that million's pretty much safe. Yeah. Whether it makes 50 million is the question mark. Yeah. Then you go into that business without risk. Like, and that changes everything you do about business. So I know we talk about podcasting and what podcasting does for a business, for an entity. It really always boils down to the conversation of the people. Yeah. Frankly, why are we doing this one? Like, we're doing this podcast because we want you to know us. Yeah, exactly. Right? The people behind it, to ensure that you understand why we're doing what we do. And hopefully by listening to us and understanding our viewpoint, our purpose, just gives you a reason to get involved with us and give us a call. Yeah. Right? That's exactly. Like not to beat around the bush, but we've got to practice what we preach. 100%. And that's what this is. Yeah. You touched upon something just a minute ago as well, but there's various different positives to why we should be doing podcasting. But you mentioned about like Iman Gadzi, if developers will come to him if he was to have a job open and stuff. Funny enough, when I spoke to, after our conversation, obviously I spoke to my wife Shakira, and I was like, what do you think about this idea? And she goes, oh, it'd be great. Because when she was applying for jobs and stuff, like many years ago, so I used to look at all the video content that the businesses were doing, and there was ones where like founders would be talking about the business and stuff. She goes, I felt like, yeah, this is a company I could work for. Like, I really believe in their values and beliefs and stuff. And she goes, that's why I applied to those businesses. And then it comes back to actually, that's a really, really important point as well, because when you've got your personal brand is so important, because when people do warm to you, you will get the best talent coming to you. And I think you almost kind of sift through the crap already, because the people who are really aligned with your values and beliefs will be the ones that apply to the jobs, to the job roles. Just before I put that on. Yeah, and I would say this, that traditionally marketing has been very managed, right? Like a business or a founder's public appearance has been controlled. You can really control that messaging, right? If like historically in traditional media with like news, etc., it was based on the PR piece that was written for them, right? Yes. Yeah. Whereas I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, new media is very risky, right? Like the boom in streaming, the boom in podcasting, they're all aligned to one logic, which is they're live. Like there's no hiding the true intent of a person. They're trained. I'm not going to deny that. But at the same time, you feel like you know them better because there is the ums and ahs in them, right? Yeah. Like they can have a moment to pause and think. And to me, that's why they're booming. Is that, I guess, and maybe this is a more global look at the world, which is we're all, as humans, we're all kind of reaching for connections. Obviously, the last few years have been quite volatile in terms of that, like being locked away at home for a bit. And then a lot of people, even myself included, like when we came out of that period, I felt like my ability to socially connect with people, to just sit in a pub or a bar, even with a friend, I struggled with because of that fact of like I was just so out of touch with it. So we're all now trying to grasp for these real deeper connections. Yeah. And I guess this is why this new media is working, is that people are seeing an opportunity to go, I can get to know them. I can actually touch and feel them. And like, when you really boil that down, you look at the streaming space, you look at the YouTube space, they're people that have invested loads of time into true perception, right? Sidemen, Logan Paul, Kai Cenat, like Speed. Like, these are people that they are who they are in front of camera, not in front of camera. They are. Like, and whether you like them or not is your problem. But these guys are making millions of pounds now, millions of dollars, because they've just been true. They've been real and they've been open. So I think I think there's always going to be a bit of a reservation, which is I don't know if I want people to see me like that. But you are who you are, right? There's only one of you. Like, believe in it, have faith in it, and run it. Do you know what I mean?
It's humanizing a brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, look, and based on that point, you think about it, Apple, prime example, people bought Apple because of Steve Jobs. I appreciate there's a lot of other people around that made the product, but it was his vision of it.
100%.
Right? And the same can apply with Tesla. Whether you like Elon Musk or not, and more recently, like, he's the one that drove it. He's the marketing machine behind it, right? And that can boil all the way down to the smaller levels, where you've got those micro influencers that have, I don't know, a micro e-com brand where they're selling hoodies. But you go from that to like a Represent or a Gymshark, where frankly, it was all based on that same logic, which is they bought into the person behind it, not the actual product. Once you've got that, your product sells itself because they like you. They trust you. And it goes to that thing, which is people buy people, not people. People don't buy product.
That's got to get cut.
So like, obviously you listen to podcasts, I listen to podcasts. Like, I have a few that I listen to that are like my regulars. Like, every week, I've got it on my Spotify. I use Spotify to listen to this stuff. I've got it on my Spotify with the ones. Like, one of the ones that I listen to is The Rest is Football. It's the most chill, Gary Lineker, Mika Richards, Alan Shearer, chatting absolute breeze. And it's like match of the day without the limitations of the BBC. It's great. And I love it on, like, repeating. Like, do you listen to repeat podcasts?
Yeah, all the time. Like, I've got the subscribe button. You know, I wait for them to say, oh, please like and subscribe our podcast. I'm like, ding. I'm waiting for that next episode.
I don't understand why people don't do it more, because it is legitimately free. Like,
100%.
You don't need to do anything. You're just getting imagine the new, like, Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones came out and you can press a button that tells you it's come out. Like, it's a free one. But I guess for me, I've become so involved with these podcasts. I am hyper engaged, right? Like, I feel like I'm sitting in the room with them. Like, I've walked down the street listening, laughed my head off.
That's it.
Like, I can't, like, and when you really boil it down, I'm like, why am I laughing? Like, I don't know these people. It's like, imagine you're sitting in a pub and you hear a conversation behind you. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
And that's what's made me laugh. But I guess it just proves the value of retention, right? And repeating content.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that's really important, because it's like you almost become part of someone's routine, or the podcast becomes part of someone's routine. Like, I take my mother-in-law as a perfect example. Like, she drives like an hour and a half each way. So an hour and a half to work, an hour and a half back. And she'll listen to the same podcast, or the same podcast, but different episodes, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But that's an hour and a half, 3 hours of her day. She's listening to a podcast. How, like, they've become part of her routine. And she's now almost feels like she knows those people on this podcast, and she's coming back saying, "Oh, I listened to this podcast. Like, you should try this at home, like for this remedy, or, you know, you're feeling a little bit ill. Why don't you try this? I listened because I heard this on this podcast." And it's actually so powerful. Like, you're getting these ideas across through someone who's just driving up and down, like doing their regular routine.
But they said it like back in it wasn't that long ago that they said that even now radio ads are still one of the most engaged with, because. Because people are in the car and they've got nothing else, right? They're sitting on the M1 or the M25. Sorry, I'm based in London. Pri's based in, like, just a bit north. These are the roads we live on, right? Like, so it's like you're just sitting on that road, and you literally, it's the only thing that's engaging you. So you can understand why those numbers were so high. And now that's gone from talk radio and advertising spend to podcasting, and of course there are going to be sponsors, etc., involved in that. But if, as a business, if you can engage beyond just like, this is our service, and actually have some interesting content, there's so many opportunities, and I guess maintaining a good, consistent cadence of content
Yes.
is the most important bit.
Yeah.
Is that even if it is only 10 or 15 minutes, but if it's every week at the same time, people get used to it. And that builds, like, I guess, a favourable audience.
Yeah, 100%. There's so much here we could unpack.
Yeah,
I think we did.
Well, no, I was going to say that there's obviously things in this that we need to dig deeper on
Yeah.
and maybe discuss further. But in the sake of time, this has been great. Look, at the end of the day, we do run this as a business. Podcastfoundry.co.uk is where you can find us. So if you are thinking about setting up a podcast, whether it's for a specific business or just for yourself, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I know it's a bit of a pitchy one, but we do run this as a business. Podcastfoundry.co.uk. You can book in a call with us, a little 15 minutes, so we can get to know you. Hopefully this has let you get to know us. And look, at the end of the day, we're also running this podcast, which is called the Podcast Foundry as well. And really, we're talking about podcasts throughout. It's a podcast about podcasts or podcasting. So if you have some ideas about content, etc., please don't hesitate to get in touch. Drop a comment down below so we can maybe do a bit more research about something specific. We are going to start doing some case studies and looking at kind of the big podcast, but even maybe some smaller form podcast where we can kind of deep dive, learn from production, content, and how they might have engaged with so many audience or engaged with their audience. So apart from that, it's been a great time. Hope to see you guys soon. Thanks from me.
Yeah. Cheers.
Peace.
Nice one.